Jim Himes here with me, and it's nice to have you in person. So this judge coming out temporarily pausing, as Jeff Zeleny points out, that this gets you essentially a week, and Trump is it appears very clear going to keep pushing it. But it also, I mean, what's a week if you're worried about literally lining up your next meals? In the example of Meals on Wheels, which we gave, right? I mean, this is a state of limbo and instability and insecurity for many.
Yeah, and look, the constitutional question is not at all up for debate here. And every judge, like the last judge, is going to say something that we all learned in sixth grade civics, which is that Congress has the power of the purse. And no, the president doesn't have the right to say, sorry, Congress, even though you appropriated, I'm not going to spend it. Yes, under the Impoundment Act, there's very, very limited circumstances, not policy related and not because you won an election, but there are very limited circumstances under which the president can pause. But what we have here is a full-blown. So anyway, my point is the constitutional question here is not complicated. This should go through the courts in no time at all. But along the way, as you point out, the tragedy, federal energy assistance. Right now, I represent Connecticut. There are folks that represent North Dakota, Minnesota. People are wondering tonight whether they should order another round of heating oil to keep their houses warm. Look, I understand that Donald Trump was elected to disrupt stuff, but I bet he wasn't elected to make people hungry, to make them homeless, and to make sure that they couldn't heat their houses in the winter.
And then, they came out with a clarifying saying this is about, even though it said all spending, right? It was to be paused, that this is actually about things about DEI, gender, Green New Deal. They gave some, well, this is what we really meant. And then the Majority Leader, John Thune, defended it. Okay, so I gave, obviously, Don Bacon, who was critical. John Thune defended it, and I wanted to give you his reasons. Here he is.
I think they are clarifying it, and I think this is not unusual for an administration to pause funding and to take a hard look and scrub of how these programs, how they're being spent, and how they interact with a lot of the executive orders that the president signed.
He's saying this is the norm. It is not unusual.
It's not unusual. I mean, I don't know how to respond to that, right? I mean, what you see there is the
You're saying it's not only unusual, it is unprecedented.
No, never has a history, in our 250-year history, has a president said, stop all foreign aid, stop all spending. So John Thune saying this is not unusual. No, it's not unusual. It is completely unprecedented. It is unconstitutional. It's causing an immense amount of pain. And what John Thune is demonstrating there is the fact that maybe Don Bacon is the exception. You sort of put Don Bacon up there. But, every senator.
Don Bacon gave his obviously genuine punched in the gut response.
Right, because Don Bacon understands the pain that this is going to cause. But with the exception of Don Bacon, pretty much every other Republican member of the House and almost every Republican member of the Senate is a wholly owned subsidiary of Donald Trump. So, I mean, you heard the president's press secretary who said the reason we can do this, totally unconstitutional, is because he won the election. Well, guess what? Right after you win the election to become president, you raise your right hand and you promise to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and to see that the laws be faithfully executed. That is not what is happening here. So what you see in the president's press secretary and in John Thune is the extent to which Donald Trump owns them, hook, line, and sinker.
So something else happened today that I don't know if you've seen on your way here, you might have, but Fox News is reporting that Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, is planning to pull General Mark Milley's portrait off the wall, which, Trump did too. But it goes further than that. Personal security detail getting pulled, his security clearance is getting pulled, and that he's also looking at stripping Milley of a star. So these are very, very serious things. The portrait, obviously, is the least of it. Obviously, Milley stood up to Trump as Joint Chiefs Chairman. We know what Trump thinks of Milley. But what's your reaction? Possibly stripping a star, security detail, security clearance?
Taking the security detail off of John Bolton, off of the people who have been threatened by Iran with death because of the Soleimani strike. This comes back to what I just said, which is that, wholly owned subsidiary of Donald Trump. And if you're a four-star officer in the Navy or in the Marine Corps or the Army, exactly, and the Iranians, were going to go after people, and Trump pulled their security detail. Why? Is that because there's a change in the security situation? No, I'm on the Intelligence Committee. I'm here to tell you, no, there is not. But again, I just said that, the senators and the congressmen are wholly owned subsidiaries of Donald Trump. He wants flag officers. He wants senior bureaucrats to be what he asked Jim Comey. Remember this? Jim Comey, 8 years ago, he said, I want your loyalty. I want your loyalty 100%. Jim Comey said, well, I'm loyal to the Constitution. He got fired. So the message that Donald Trump is sending here is that if you're a flag officer and you're doing what you think is right and constitutional, that's not good enough. You do what I tell you to do. And, you know, Chris Murphy said that that's the action of a king. It's kind of the action of a king.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Congressman Hyams. Good to see you. All right. And meanwhile,